some point will we discuss funding?
Yes. That's where we go down to what needs to be done, what needs to be known, all that, and the community engagement. So we'll get down to the bottom. But we can talk about anything anywhere. It's just that I want to be able to have little blocks in the conversation. So if you think I've asked you this before or we've covered the ground before, it's only because I want a way to introduce in. And then when I edit the podcast, if there's stuff I've said 3 or 4 times, I'll just take it out once or twice so that we don't sound like we're repeating ourselves. Yeah. Yep. So we are recording now, and and we'll go. So I'll do my corny introduction. It's the Bird Emergency. I'm Grant Williams. I'm just a bird nerd. I'm here to introduce significant people. I hope my guest isn't going to blush when I say significant people, but spreading the word about birds is what the Bird Emergency is all about. I've already blown the surprise on the video, but here we are. Kate Ravich. Hello, Kate. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time to interview me.
Now, we're speaking to Kate because Kate is a long time ornithologist, but now also a activist and what are you? You're almost like a missionary on the work to.
Oh, my grandmother would be thrilled if she thought I was a missionary.
Well, saving the critically endangered birds of King Island. So, how about we start, Kate, with what took you to King Island, and tell us about King Island. Where is it, and why is it special?
Right. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my background first, because that kind of fits into how we ended up in King Island. I grew up in New Zealand, but I grew up in a very remote place in New Zealand, and so I was always looking to go to remote places. And at that time, I was living in Sydney, and my late husband and I, as I say, I was always looking for somewhere remote. I saw King Island being promoted, being advertised. This was right back in 1990, 92, I think. And I said, oh, look, this is a great place. We must go there. So we came here, and we're here for a couple of weeks and had a wonderful, wonderful holiday. And then about 10 years later, we'd got to the point where I was going really quite dotty in Sydney. It was getting quite difficult for me. And I kept saying, we've got to get somewhere which we can go to, and as well as Sydney. And so I saw a covenanted forest being advertised in King Island, and I told Bob, and I thought he'd think I was a complete nut, but no. So we came down here, we saw the property, which I have 500 acres of covenanted forest, and at that time the cottage on it hadn't been lived in for 10 years, so it was a complete disaster, but it was basically sound. And we bought it and started having holidays down here. And then since my husband died 10 years ago, I've really spent pretty much all my time here. I just love it. I love it. I love the island. I love the community. I love the ecology. It's fascinating. And it's a gorgeous island. It's people keep saying, oh, you live on King Island. Well, that must be very windy. Well, yes, we have wind. Most islands do. In the winter and the spring, we can get a lot of very high winds, but we also have fabulous still days without a wind inside, with no wind. It's a unusual place. There's not many people here. There's about, I think, 1,500 people on the island altogether. It's ancient as far as its geology is concerned. It's, as far as birds are concerned, it's on a number of migratory routes. So we have international migrants here, in the shorebirds, and we have Bass Strait migrants which pass through, including things like the orange-bellied parrot. And then we have our own endemics. So there's 9 endemic species here, or recognised 9 endemic species. We may have others which haven't been recognised, and some of them, or one of them anyway, may in fact be a complete species, but the work hasn't been done for that.
Well,
There's
let's
a huge
let,
amount to be done here. Sorry?
let's get into that a little bit later. But first, Kate, I want to ask you about New Zealand and the remote places, and you've ended up in a windy place. You weren't down in Invercargill, were you, in New Zealand?
No, I wasn't. But I was in the South Island. I was in a place called Banks Peninsula, Akaroa. It's a little village, and the place that I grew up in, Stony Bay, was on the back of that. So it opens directly out into the Southern Ocean. No, it doesn't actually, into the South Pacific. So it's looking down south. And we'd get some mighty storms there, just as bad, worse than we get here on King Island. And we did, because of the hill, we had, in New Zealand we call them hills, in Australia it would be called a mountain. We would get snowed in every winter, and so we'd be isolated during the winter because of snow. And as kids, we did correspondence school up until we went to boarding school, because we lived too far away to get to an ordinary school. So I was the youngest of 5, and I grew up in this absolutely magical, beautiful place that was wild and woolly and fantastic.
So
and
so
still
that
is.
would be like
My family.
so that would be like correspondence school would be like cold school of the air.
Yes, School of the Air, sort of. Yeah, we did it mainly through postal. It was mainly done through the mail. So I think each
The
month we
old
would get this big set of stuff through the mail, which would be our next month's work.
So like the olden days, that when everyone did things by mail and listened on the wireless to
Yeah,
well, that's how
exactly
we had
it.
the lessons in Australia, listening on the wireless.
Yeah.
Kate, tell us about your ornithological career, your journey into uh, bird science, and where did that lead? And then we'll jump back to King Island after that.
Well, where I grew up, we always knew what was around us. You know, we always knew what birds were there or what happened. It was just a part of our lives, really. And when I first came to Australia, I would ask people, "Oh, what bird is that?" And they'd look at me blankly. This was in Sydney, and have no idea. And I found that very odd, really. So I bought myself a field guide, and then a friend of mine's boyfriend bought her a pair of binoculars. Well, that was very exciting. The world opened up then. So the next thing was the binoculars, and then I just started watching birds, and my holidays always would be, when we went away somewhere, it would be the first thing I'd do would get out off. I'd go and try and find out what lived there, and of course Australia has wonderful birds. So that's how I learned how to be a birder. I didn't. I started volunteering in BirdLife Australia, I think in 1987 or something, ages ago. And then, but at that time, I was, my profession was in medicine, as a practice manager. I was managing medical practices, consultant practices, and I really was working full time, so I couldn't do much about it. But later on in my when I sort of got to my 50s and decided I needed to actually do what I really wanted to do, which was conservation, I went to university and did. I actually did 2 things. Primarily I did an education degree on with community and adult education as primaries. And then I did a ornithology at Charles Sturt University and did a graduate certificate. So
Did you have to go on?
I'm not an ornithologist in the sense that I don't have a PhD. I'm not a scientist in that sense, to that level. But what I am is a educator, and I have enough formal ornithology training to sort of know what I'm talking about, and or know where to go if I don't know what the answers are. So
And
that's sort of been my
and
journey, really.
and so when you are reading your bird guides, you know what the tarsus is.
Yes.
So that's
And
that separates the wheat from the chaff, I think.
yeah, and you I mean, a part of that, the ornithology certificate at a grad certificate and diploma, and you can go on and do a PhD. And I would love to have gone on, but at that stage my husband wasn't well, and so I stopped uni. But it's a wonderful course. It's a fantastic course. So I think Professor Dave Watson is still in charge of that at Charles Sturt University. Certainly he was when I was there, and it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and very worthwhile. Anyone who's interested in birds, whether they want to work with them or not, it's very worthwhile. It's a postgrad certificate, so it's fairly full on, but it's worth doing.
Now you mentioned that there was the pathway through volunteering. Where did your hardcore birder activity begin?
Well, I guess it began when I put my hand up to be the newsletter editor in the New South Wales or Southern New South Wales and ACT group, we were called then, of BirdLife Australia. And the then president or chair of that group said, well, if I was going to do that, then I had to be on the committee. And I was very opposed to that because at the time I'd just finished chairing another professional organisation for the state, and I was completely over committees. But anyway, that sort of led to one thing and another. And so I guess so I did that for a little while, and then we were needing a new project in New South Wales, and I had been developing my garden in Sydney for some time as a wildlife garden, and so I brought up the idea of maybe having an urban bird program, and one of my colleagues on that committee, who had just completed his PhD as an ecologist, had also been thinking along similar lines. So we got onto this role, and we designed Birds in Backyards, which is now one of the biggest programs. I think it's the second biggest program that BirdLife Australia has. It took us 2 years to get that designed and going, and the colleague who started it with me was only there for a few months, and then he got a postdoc position in South Africa and disappeared, and so left me in the hot seat. So that took a lot of work, getting that over a 2-year period with volunteers. I had a fabulous steering committee, and we worked to design Birds in Backyards, and then we've got the first funding for it in 2000, which was when Holly Parsons, who's still there as a manager, was doing her honours degree at Wollongong University, and she became our first honours student to do work and research with Birds in Backyards, and that was really exciting. And then we took it, the next stage, I think, was to get the website. When we got the website built, that was in 2005. In between, we were running around as volunteers, talking to groups and running, small data collection projects and things. So we sort of had it going. And then in 2005, we got funding to do the website. and that was a major step forward. And then funding came to support Holly as a manager, or to support a manager, and we employed Holly. So it was a growth thing. But Birds and Backyards was when I really started to become seriously involved in conservation, and of course that was based in urban conservation. But I was always doing things really. I was also going out and planting in the Kapiti Valley for region honeyeater recovery and that kind of stuff. Um, and it wasn't until when I came to King Island, it really wasn't. I learned a huge amount about what was happening here. And then after my husband died, it was after that that I set up Wings on King. So
Now
I started
I
there.
know you don't want to toot your own horn, Kate, but
No,
tell us about the Lifetime Achievement Award. Um, what what was it? What benefits does it bestow on you? Like, does that mean that you can? There's like a card and you can flash it at posh restaurants and get the best table? Or tell us about that.
no, not at all. No, that's BirdLife Australia made me a lifelong member. It's really just an award to acknowledge what I've achieved. I guess with Birds and Backyards now, I've brought in over $1 million of funding to support Holly and that program, as well as setting it up and now doing the Wings on King stuff. So it's really just an acknowledgement from them for what I've done, and I've done so far anyway. So it's a thank you. It doesn't come with many. I don't have to pay for my membership of BirdLife any longer. Otherwise, it's about the only thing it's done from that point of view. But it was an honour, and it was completely by surprise. I was not expecting it at all, and so it was a lovely thing, and it was nice to be acknowledged, because I guess the thing about volunteer work, and most of my work has been volunteer, is that you put a huge amount of effort into it, and you never quite know where you can see. My rewards come from seeing change and seeing difference. That's what I'm seeking. So the reward from BirdLife was lovely, and very much appreciated. But that's not sort of what my aims are. My aims are to actually get those birds safe and
Absolutely.
safe.
And I wanted to bring it up because you don't toot your own horn and blow your own trumpet, but change takes constant effort for so long. And in conservation, I think the general community doesn't understand that nearly all of the significant work is done by volunteers. And I'm not downplaying the people who run programs, they're generally funded positions. But the foot soldiers are the people who turn up all the time, ongoing for long periods of time and get things done. And I think it's great that you've been recognised. And Kate, the other thing I always say in the bird emergency is that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. So you mentioned Holly Parsons. Now she's been a great friend of the show. We've done lots of wildlife garden and preservation with pesticides and using water in the garden, all that kind of stuff to continue to reinforce what Birds in Backyards is all about, but to bridge the gap between the science that's being done out there, the recovery programs, the revegetation teams, the farmers fencing off corridors and allowing the wild to reclaim it. It's all connected, but there's not many people actually getting paid to do any of it. Not the extension work. So I think it's great. Now,
Thank you. You're absolutely right. The amount of work done by volunteers is not only in the environment, but across the whole of Australia in many areas, but we're talking about the environment, is massive. And it's also very often up to communities to recognise when something's in strife. But to do that, you've got to have someone in the community who's looking, someone who understands enough. So many things are missed in environmental conservation just because we are so reliant on having somebody present who is able to identify those things and has the time and the determination, etc., to actually to note it and to bring it forth. And we rely hugely, I think, too much on volunteers. But the government doesn't have money, they tell us.
What we needed to have was a front company that could claim work JobKeeper, and we'd probably be rolling in cash to keep the volunteers' cars full of petrol. So
could be lots of discussions about that, couldn't there?
Okay, Kate. Let's talk specifically about the Wings on Kings, Birds of King Island surveys, and what well, actually, let's take it back a little bit. Why are the surveys necessary, and what are the endangered birds on King Island that are really the focus of the information gathering? Let's go there.
Okay, well, just a little bit of history about where Wings on King came from. In 2013, I think it was 2013, there was a big push on King Island not on King Island, but to have a massive wind farm built on the island. And I think we had 200, they were proposing 200 wind towers, 40 stories high, etc. Never happened in the end. But one of the things we realised was that we actually had no data to be able to defend or otherwise the birds of King Island in those circumstances. So from that, I decided that we needed to get data. But again, coming back to volunteers, King Island works on volunteers. The volunteers do work on everything. Without them, King Island's community would hardly exist. Excuse me. And not many of them knew much about birds. So I needed to get surveyors from away, from off the island. We say away on King Island. If you don't live on King Island, you're from away. So when I needed to get people from away to come and help. There was also the fact that King Island is actually a fantastic birding spot. It's an absolute hotspot. So that was another issue. So the sort of three aims of Wings on King was to get the data, so we could actually learn about what birds we had, how they were going, and use that knowledge as a method of judging the sort of environmental sustainability of the island, and monitoring that. And we also, I wanted to encourage another form of economy on the island, because we need to diversify. And bird tourism, as you would know, is a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. So I want to increase bird tourism. And I also wanted to explain to it and help the King Islanders understand how unique their island actually is. And I believe in this thing that if you don't love something, you don't care for it. And we all love King Island, but many King Islanders don't understand its complexity or its uniqueness. They love it, but they don't sort of quite know how to look after it, to be honest. And so I was also wanting to do that, a lot of work in the community about just bringing their knowledge and understanding and depth of understanding about the island, increasing that. So those were the reasons we started Wings on King. And the surveys we started in 2017. I've got over 62 sites situated across the island, which I set up before we actually started the surveys. So those sites, quite a lot of them are on private land as well as on reserves and public land, which means that when you survey them, you're getting onto land into places which most people don't go to, can't get to. It takes quite a bit of an effort to do that because you've got to make sure that the surveyors are covered with insurance and that the landholders aren't up for any damage if they fall over and break their leg or something. So we had to set up the systems to do all of that kind of thing and make sure that it worked. So it's been going since 2017, and we're just about to do the first 5 years of analysis, about to start that soon this year. We want to get that done. And that will give us a baseline for each particular site. And the sites are set out on a whole variety of different habitats, including grazing land, but mainly within forests and remnants, different sized remnants. So we can get an idea of what's happening to the common birds on King Island as well as the threatened birds. And in many ways, common birds, if you're looking from a sustainability point of view and monitoring ecological health, it's actually easier and more effective to monitor your common birds because, if you start seeing them being reduced, then you've got some really big issues. Whereas when you already know you've only got a few of a species, it's a different kind of message coming through. So that's what Wings on King is doing, and I guess when I look back from when we began 5 years ago, I think certainly the understanding and value of birds on King Island has improved considerably. So the community are increasingly becoming involved, which is fantastic. In fact, the last 2 years, of course, with COVID, we haven't been able to get people to come onto the island to help with the surveys, but we have nevertheless managed to get them all done. And one of the criteria about those surveys is that at least one person in the team must be an expert, must know their birds, be a good birder. So that's always made it a bit difficult to form teams, but a number of people have been doing it now for a few years. So they've gone from being beginners and not sure into being people who are really recognising and being able to lead teams. So I think that was certainly one of the aims, and we've also collected the data. And I think if you talk to the tourist people, that we are getting an increasing number of people coming to the island as birders. And one of the great thing, and I'll just pop this in here now, but King Island has 10 of the 12 Tasmanian endemics on the island, and you can see them in a small island. Whereas if you go to Tassie will hate me for saying this, but it doesn't matter. If you go to Tassie, you've got to drive all over the place to get to see them all. You see, but here we've got them all here on a small island, so you can pick them up over a few days. In fact, I had a bloke who rang me the other day. He thought he'd got a photograph of a King Island brown thornbill, which he had actually. And he'd got all the subspecies. He'd ticked them all off. He was thrilled as bits. He was happy. But so it's a good spot from that point of view.
That's hardcore, isn't it? When you're chasing every subspecies of every species. That's
really hardcore. Absolutely.
That's good. Kate, something you said before,
Sorry.
That's all right. Something you said before was that King Island was unique, and there were so many things about it that people even on King Island don't understand. Let's explore that a little bit. But first, I just want to make it clear for the international people who aren't familiar with the geography of Australia. When you look at the big map of Australia, you've got the great big island, and then down the bottom, you've got this little sort of island, this little dot. It's kind of a bit like a triangle shape, but it's got a big fat bottom. But above that, there's two dots that often appear almost above each top corner of the triangle island, which is Tasmania. Now, King Island is one of those larger dots in Bass Strait, separating the mainland of Australia from Tassie. Which one's King Island, Kate? And what is sort of special about it?
Okay, so King Island is on the west side of Bass Strait. It's exactly 130 kilometres from mainland Australia and at the top point, and 130 kilometres from Tasmania at the bottom point. And the bottom point is where Bass Strait meets the Southern Ocean. So on our western side of the island is the Southern Ocean, and on our eastern side is Bass Strait, which are completely different. Bass Strait is quite shallow, and of course, I think it's 30 kilometres from our western coast out to the Great Abyss, and a drop off into the deep ocean. So it's quite a wild place in some ways on that western coast. Beautiful, but quite wild. The eastern coast is much softer in a way, but Bass Strait, being a shallow sea, is also very turbulent, so it can get quite wild. The uniqueness of King Island is interesting because Bass Strait used to be connected. It used to be dry and used to be connected to Tasmania, and then about 10,000 years ago, the end of the last ice age, it filled up and isolated King Island. So we have species. Which only appear on Tasmania and don't. So this is the northernmost point that they exist. They're not on the mainland. We have species which are at their southernmost point and do not appear in Tasmania. I think a really interesting thing is we have platypus here, and our platypus, King Island platypus, are more closely related to the Victorian mainland platypus than they are to the Tasmanians. And our echidna is possibly the same, although I'm not sure of that. Whereas we also have the endemic species, or 10 of the Tasmanian endemic bird species here, and as I said earlier, 9 of our 9 subspecies which have evolved differently while I've been here on the island. Ecologically, we've got some of the oldest rocks known in Tasmania, and very interesting geology. We've got some fantastic geology walks, actually, which we've got a guide for, which are really fun. So we've got vegetation communities which are completely unique to King Island. A number of those. A number of them have been cleared, but we've still got remnants of them. And we've got, well, I guess that'll probably cover it at the moment, but it's like many islands, islands are inclined to be unique because they evolve in their own right. I mean, the Galapagos, of course, have got to be the ultra example of that. But we've got some beautiful beaches, which are ancient beaches, you see. So the sand is really fine and white, like a lot of Australian beaches, because we are such an ancient country. So there's a lot going for King Island.
And I didn't know you were also doubling as the chief executive of Tourism King Island. Great job, Kate.
No, I'm not. But I think we often take things for granted. Particularly when you live in a place, it's easy to take those things for granted and not really recognise just how valuable or unique they are.
No doubt.
And maybe that's because I've come from another country originally that I've wanted to look. But I mean, I think most people know Australia's ancient, but when you look at the kind of ancientness of, say, a little bit of it, like King Island, it's really fascinating to me.
Okay. Well, the bird emergency, Kate, is pretty much focused on endangered birds, critically endangered birds, if we can manage it. King Island has 3 critically endangered birds. Most of the literature tells us it's 2, but fill us in on the newcomer, and then if you can run through what the birds are and why they're unique, and then we'll talk about their individual positions.
Well, the newcomer is the King Island black currawong, which is a subspecies of the Tasmanian black currawong. It has been identified in the 2020 Action Plan for Australian Birds as critically endangered, and that publication comes out every 10 years, and it looks at all birds in Australia, so it looks at everything. And reclassifies them, and also looks at any work that's been done in the intervening 10 years, which might be helping to support them. So the black currawong is not yet listed with the federal government as a critically endangered species. It will be, but at the moment it's just a new identification. The other 2, the King Island scrub tit and the King Island brown thornbill. The scrub tit we have known for a long time it's a subspecies of the Tasmanian scrub tit, which doesn't appear, I think I'm right in saying this, it's only a Tasmanian bird. It doesn't live in the mainland at all. We've known for a long time that was critically endangered, and that has been as a result of loss of habitat. So King Island was once covered, well, not completely covered, but was very vegetated, highly vegetated, and a lot of that was swamp forest, Melaleuca swamp forest, and that's the scrub tit's preferred habitat. The majority of that has now been cleared, and the areas have been drained for agriculture. So habitat has been reduced massively, and was then reduced again in 2007 when we had a huge fire on King Island, and a lot of the remaining old growth Melaleuca swamp forest was burnt or badly damaged. The King Island brown thornbill is slightly different, has different habitat, or to a degree different habitat. And we actually thought it was probably extinct because it hadn't been seen for such a long time. So no one was really doing anything about it because we didn't think it still existed. And then a member of the King Island community saw it in a spot where we now know it is. But it wasn't until a year or 2 later that 2 separate photographers came to the island and managed to photograph it. So we then had absolute evidence that it still existed. So, but was, very critically endangered. Although, and that again, federally, it's only listed as being endangered because no one has done the work to increase it to critical, but it is critical. A few years ago, a group of experts put a paper together identifying the most likely next bird extinctions in Australia. And they put the brown thornbill, King Island brown thornbill, as number 1, and the King Island scrub tit as number 3. And 2 is the orange-bellied parrot, which actually moves through King Island as well. So we are very much the sort of hotspot in a way of the top 3. We have a connection with the top 3 next most likely extinctions. That publication really sort of got us into action, and from there we developed, Matt Webb and a team from the expert team developed a way of actually locating the King Island brown thornbill because they're very hard to find, and we started we had a major meeting on the island, which was supported by the King Island Landcare Group and by BirdLife Australia, and we worked out that we needed a conservation action plan, and from there we've gone on from there. So that's sort of the story of those 3 species. With the scrub tit's habitat, again, going back to historically, King Island had large areas of massive, really massive blue gum forests. Most of which, well, all of which actually, none of the original forest is now left. Between clearing and fire and what have you, there's none left. But there is still some old growth blue gum forest and eucalypt forest, and that's their preferences. But we're also finding them now in more scrubby habitat as well, and we think that they use it to move. So they're not quite as specific as the scrub tit. And the black currawong is using a lot of that scrubby old growth scrub, what they call King Island scrub complex, for breeding and things. And again, that a lot of that has been cleared. So clearing is the major issue for all 3 species. Loss of habitat.
That report you referenced, I think, Kate, says that across Australia, 1 in 5 of our bird life species are threatened with extinction. And any way you slice it, and so a lot of our birds out of our 700 odd species are migrating in from the northern birds are coming in across from New Guinea. We've got a lot of pelagics, which are worldwide sort of species. So our endemics are in dire straits, and which I don't think there's any other way than to say that our conservation efforts generally over perhaps the last 30 years, certainly the last 20 years, and especially the last 10 years, have just been abysmal, have been an abject failure. And it's shameful. It's shameful that we're talking about koalas potentially being extinct, but the rate of bird life being threatened here is just, it's a black stain on the modern history of Australia, I believe.
I completely just agree with you. I think one of the issues too, which it's really important to realise, is that birds are fantastic indicators of environmental health. And so when you're seeing birds being threatened, particularly in the 1 in 5 level, this is not natural. This is not a natural evolutionary process of extinction. It's indicating that Australia-wide we have got massive environmental issues, and we're not addressing them sufficiently. And unfortunately, our current government and previous governments have just not recognising what the threat to birds is actually telling us. The story it's telling us is that we're in massive trouble. The whole world is, of course, with climate change. So all species, including our own, are in strife with climate change because it's so rapid. Partially because it's so rapid. Nothing's got time to evolve, to adapt. So we're going to lose a lot. And I don't know that anything we can do is going to stop that unless we really get a handle on climate change quickly.
I think, Kate, if I can just interject there, I think there are things that we can do, and that governments are using climate change in a way as a shield. It's like the pandemic response, that everybody knew there were problems coming down the track, but every government is saying, "Oh, nobody could have possibly seen this happening coming. It's new." We could mitigate some of the problems that we're going to inevitably face with climate change if we stop the habitat reduction. And
Absolutely.
I saw a report last week that Australia, the US, and I think it was the UK, it was either the UK or Canada, those nations are now the people who live in them have the largest homes on the planet per capita, and they're getting bigger, and
Yeah.
we're continually clearing land to build bigger homes. It's all counterintuitive, and nobody seems to want to face the fact that we need to change the way we live a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't have to go and take ourselves back to primitive life, but seriously, nobody needs a four-car garage. You might like it, but nobody needs it. It's not a necessity of life. And until our community can decide whether it wants to preserve 20% of our bird species or it doesn't, whether we want to ensure that the great grandchildren of the kids that we are going off the charts with the media coverage about getting vaccinated, whether the grandchildren of those children will ever see a koala in anything but a zoo, we need to face these issues, and we need to stop doing what we know is the problem. We don't need any more studies to tell us that we need to stop clearing box ironbark. That would help region honeyeaters and swift parrots. We don't need any more studies to work that particular issue out.
That's right. Hmm.
So,
I
here endeth that
absolutely.
sermon.
Yeah, but you're quite right. We don't, we don't need studies, and governments traditionally seem to want to do yet another study just because it allows them to put off actually doing anything. We won't go into politics because we'd be here for the rest of the week probably. But
Sorry, Kate.
but
Just for a minute,
but
I will.
can I just make one? Okay, you will what? Go into politics?
Just no. I'll just point something out, because Google translates all this stuff and it can be found in searches. If governments would actually act in the interest of the environment and not property development just for 10 years, they could just put a moratorium. They're big on words like that, just to let the society, the academic work catch up, so that we could actually monitor what's here rather than lament what we lost before a study was done. And it doesn't matter which color of politics it is. It they are all tied to this property development and real estate boom, and we need to decouple it from the idea of success. It, in my view,
But you see,
and
yeah, well, that's because at the moment society lives on the basis of the economy. We think that the economy is us, really, and we can't live without it. Well, in
but
fact, the economy, there's no society without a healthy environment, and there's no economy without healthy society. So it's actually us who controls the economy, but we also have the impact on the environment. So if we really care about if governments really care about the population and the people of that country, they need to be looking after the environment first, because without that, we can't have a good economy anyway. And unfortunately,
tourism.
money
Sorry,
does tell us to do that.
tourism in Australia relies on our natural environment and our unique natural flora and fauna. And if that's gone, we are no different than having a holiday in any other island with our kind of climate and a Western society. So it makes it harder for that section of the community to have an advantage. At the moment, if you can see kangaroos and emus from your bus, your train, or your car window, as you are traveling around Australia, that gives us an advantage. The minute that they are either gone or extremely difficult to see, people will choose to go to London, to Paris, to the snowfields. We lose our advantage, and just stop it, please. Just stop it.
Yeah, but I think coming back to the birds as indicators thing, they are telling us a story loud and clear that we are in environmental strife in Australia, and we've got to make it a priority. We have to, if we're going to survive and have a prosperous country. We have to. And unfortunately, too many people don't understand that, but a lot of people do, and I do think that it is beginning to change. But we have to move quickly. We've left it so late that we don't really have time to be waiting much longer or any longer. We need to be in action now.
Well, that's why we're always banging on about it, Kate. We just need to get one more person to be interested and whatnot. And actually, Kate, I'll just run this one past you. I was workshopping slogans, because I really like the whole extinction is forever and all that kind of stuff. But I keep hearing people, this will be celebrities and whatnot. Everybody cares about the environment. Everybody cares about saving koalas, and everybody cares about whatever it is. Well, it's nice that you care, but it would be even better if you took some action, if you did something. So we've been caring for 30 years. So what do you think?
Okay.
It's nice that you care, but it would be nicer if you did something.
Well, you see, if you look at education and how we learn, then there's different steps of how adults learn. Adults don't learn very easily. They will push things aside if it's too uncomfortable. Children are much easier because they're like sponges and they take everything in and they'll listen to anything you have to say to them. But adults don't do that. So to get them to actually change how they act, they have to see its relevance to their lives. And if something seems relevant to you and its demise feels relevant to you, then you will do something about it. But if it's something which is just over there, you can say, isn't that awful? I mean, it's a bit like, we get overloaded with COVID, actually, at the moment. I think everybody's pretty overloaded with COVID information. So after a while, you start just pushing it away and say, oh my goodness, 36 people died today, how awful. But you don't actually connect with it because you can't, it's too hard. And the same thing can happen with, yes, I do care about the environment. I think it's dreadful that the koalas are being lost, but how can I be involved with that? Is that really relevant? Is it something that I have to personally put time or thought or money or something into? And getting that change, seeing that relevance and encouraging people to see that relevance is one of the most difficult things about environmental education, because we take so much for granted. We take clean water, clean air, all that stuff. We just completely take it for granted. And we don't see how we can make any difference to making sure it stays there. So providing things for people to do, which can be easy steps, is one way of trying to encourage people to actually go from, yes, I care, to, yes, I can do something. You have to give them something to do. And I mean, that's with the bird surveys, going back to Wings on King, it is giving people something which they can actively do, that we are learning from, which will help us protect the species which are here and protect the environment on King Island. And those sorts of activities are really important to provide them easily. Because, if you look, a lot of people blame landholders, they're clearing the land all the time and all this stuff. Landholders work most farmers some have lots of money, but most farmers work extremely hard. And when they come in at night, they don't have the energy to be reading new stuff and saying, oh my God, I've got to change everything I've been doing and all that kind of thing. So again, we need to be trying to get funding and methods of helping them to understand and make relevant and change what they're doing. And again, so a lot of that comes back down to government. I mean, I would like my taxpayer money to be used for that kind of thing. But
Wouldn't it be great if
it subsidises coal instead?
Well, here's a radical idea, Kate. Wouldn't it be great if a landowner could make the same amount of money as they can from exploiting it if they rehabilitated it?
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we need to be doing. I've had a little theory for ages, which I have put out there on occasion, that in Australia we need to have a Medicare type environmental levy, where everybody, all taxpayers, pay, whether it's 1% or 2% or something or other, into restoring environment, and that at least some of that money is used to pay farmers to allow their land to produce biodiversity. When people talk to me about what do, I tell them that I'm a primary producer. Now I'm producing, because I own a forest, 500 acres of forest, I'm producing clean air and clean water.
Yep.
And maintaining biodiversity. So I see myself as being a primary producer in the true sense of the word.
Now,
not
Kate,
food.
Kate, putting my my old accounting experience
Hat on
to use here, I'm not sure that you're able to claim any of the tax advantages and offsets of a primary producer.
No, absolutely not a sausage.
So wouldn't that be a unique idea and a change to
absolutely.
to the tax code? But the other thing too, Kate, is when you propose a levy, people go, 0.5%. If it was 0.001%, it would probably be 500 times the amount of money that the government has expended on environmental preservation in the last 10 years. I mean, a levy like that, a general levy like that, can be at such a low rate to become super effective.
More than we're doing now.
But I don't even want anything like that. Even though no one can object, it's like, well, I don't live in the environment. Why should I contribute? Well, I'm sorry,
but they do.
Can't have that.
They rely.
That's right.
They completely rely.
That's right.
On
they can't have that argument. So it's actually a good case. But I just want a landowner who might be in marginal activities in agriculture, and that is a massive amount of small holdings who the evidence tells us are only surviving by having off-farm income. So if that's true, then it just follows that is a non-economic farm. If the only way the operators can survive is by taking shifts in a cafe or working as a tire fitter or trading stocks online, whatever it happens to be, that is not an economically viable farm. So why don't we give them an income to repair biodiversity? And in a lot of cases, it's as simple as leaving the land alone and then maybe weed control. Now that's got other costs and whatnot involved in it, but we've got to find a way to do it. But
yes, we absolutely do. We're up against big corporates, masses of money, power, all that stuff. But it is in everybody's interest, including those people, all of those people, for us to do it. And then you've also got the philosophical, ideas too. Don't other species have the right to live as well as us?
That's right.
And they
That's
certainly
right.
do, in my opinion.
Yep.
um,
Yep. Well,
we
I'm not taking
do
any
we have the
arguments.
right to knowingly get rid of something? I don't think we do.
No. Anyway, I
Anyway,
don't think we can push that much further, Kate. I
we
think
could go on for a long time.
I mean, I think we're in tune, and we'd be a pretty good part of a choir. We just need to get the choir to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's right.
Kate, we've referenced the surveys that we keep talking about. The surveys. I want you to tell us about when the next surveys happen and how somebody could be involved.
Okay, so the next Wings on King surveys are happening in the last weekend of April. So they'll be from the Thursday, the 28th, I think, through until Sunday, the 1st of May. If anybody wants to be involved, they need to register online, and that's done by just Google Birds of King Island, and you'll see in that website that there's a paid Wings on King, and you go into that, and then there's registration directions there. I close those registrations about a week beforehand, so they need to do that. If they're coming from outside the island, they also need to be looking at booking accommodation, a car, flights, etc. And I'm not sure what's happening with COVID at the moment as to what bookings and things are like, but I would suggest if people are wanting to come that they come quite soon. They start booking now, but they don't have to register until a bit later on. Once I've got those registrations in, and then I form teams. So people are asked in the registration form, they're asked what their level of fitness is, what their level of bird knowledge is, various other questions, and I use that information to form teams of sort of mixed experience and fitness, but similar fitness, and then allocate sites to them. And most teams, depending on how many teams we have, and again, COVID has been playing havoc with everything, but generally, if I like to have about 5 or 6 teams. 6 is good. 7's okay too. And if you've got 6 teams and they're doing about 10 sites each, and that doesn't sound all that many, but it's actually quite a lot of distance which gets travelled, so it's fine. So 5 or 6 sites a day is good. So that's what they need to do. We always have a sort of social event on the Saturday night, and in the past I've had speakers and various other things. Again, in the last couple of years, that's been very difficult because of COVID, so I'm not quite sure what will be happening this in April and autumn yet. But it'll be up on the website once I've got it sorted.
And on the ticker below us, Kate, birdsofkingisland.com is there, so anyone can check it. Podcast listeners, it's really easy. birdsofkingisland.com, and I'll put a link in the podcast information, of course, so that you can try and get your way down to King Island, and you can fly into King Island on Sharp Air. So again,
You
I'll
can
put
fly
some.
into King Island depending where you're coming from. Rex Regional Express flies from Melbourne. Sharp flies from Tasmania, Hobart, and Launceston. I
And
think
Melbourne
Rex also goes into
and
Devonport
Moorabbin.
now.
Yep. Yep.
And then King Island Air comes from Moorabbin. Yeah, so there's 3 different
Yep.
airlines coming in.
Yep. So
There
I
is
will
some
put
stuff about that on the Birds of King Island website about accommodation and things.
and I'll put links on the podcast page as well for
Okay.
what I
Right.
have been able to find out. I'll just check that it's current. And of course, you can get from Melbourne to Tasmania by boat and by air. So there are a couple of ways to get down there. I imagine if you were looking to take part, you would need to be looking at booking very, very, very soon. Kate, is there anything else you want to tell us about King Island that, or the birds in particular, that we haven't covered off?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a bit about the Conservation Action Plan, which we haven't done, in regards to the scrub tit and the brown thornbill. So
Okay, let me just introduce that again, because I don't know if you can see it, but I'm having internet lagging problems, which are distracting me. But so, Kate, the conservation efforts to preserve the 3 critically endangered subspecies that are on King Island is sort of wrapped up in the King Island Action Plan. So tell us about the plan. I assume that the plan has been informed by the previous survey work that you've done over the last 5 years.
No, the both the scrub tit and the brown thornbill are extremely difficult to find. So in the Wings on King surveys, we don't look for any specific species. We just find whatever we find and monitor those. The surveys that we've been undertaking for the scrub tit and brown thornbill have been specific and have been done, are being done by experts using a different methodology, which we're finding them. They have been. We started those. So we had a meeting on King Island where we worked out what should we do, and that meeting was we invited a lot of experts from away, and it had community members, and it had BirdLife Australia who coordinated it, and also the King Island Landcare Group. And at that meeting, we decided we needed a conservation action plan. Now, conservation action plans, if people don't know about them, they're the sort of best practice, I guess, promoted by the IUCN, International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and they're a method of undertaking a sort of what's the words? I'm losing my words. They are I've got it actually here, a little printout thing here. Yes, okay. So it's a coordinated response where it's done under a management plan that is proactive and is also adaptive, so that you work out what your needs are, and then you adapt what you do, but you monitor what you're doing. So you're perpetually in a process of saying, is this working? Is it not working? How do we adapt it to make sure that it does work? And overseas and also in Australia now, conservation action plans are being used extensively to get real results from conservation initiatives. So we developed a conservation action plan with the help of BirdLife Australia, and then we formed the steering committee to manage that last year. At the moment, what we're doing, members of that committee come from a range of organisations, including government and NRMs and anyone who's stakeholders generally, and the King Island community. At the moment, we are still undertaking really structured surveys right across the island, where we're surveying every potential habitat site for both species. Experts are, both in the spring and the autumn. So we're learning about what populations we have and remaining and where they are. We're also doing vegetation studies as to what vegetation they're using and what we have remaining on King Island. So a part of the Conservation Action Plan is to also protect and expand the natural vegetation that we have left. Those studies are ongoing. This year we have probably will have a project doing some genetic work, both in Tasmania and possibly on King Island as well, regarding the scrub tit and the thornbill. And the other thing, we've just applied for the federal government for a big grant to start the process of reconnecting populations. So we've got little, particularly brown thornbill, we've got tiny populations and different remnants, but the remnants themselves aren't particularly big. So we need to start reconnecting, or really right across the island, reconnecting remnant forests. And so we've got that application to federal government now. That will be the beginning of what will need to be a very long-term, huge project to slowly reconnect. And that's where we need to be working with landholders individually. And as we were talking about before, we need to be finding ways for them to be advantaged as well as the island, the birds of the island to be advantaged. So it's a big project, and it will be ongoing. It will take a lot of funding from different sources over some years, but at least we're in the process of beginning it. So that's just sort of a very brief rundown on what we're doing at the moment. And community education and community involvement will be very much part of all of that.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Now, Kate, before we move on to the bird emergency questions, it just struck me, and look, why use a nutcracker to open a walnut when you can use a sledgehammer, right? King Island has 3 of the top 4 birds most likely to go extinct in the near future. Correct.
Next 20 years.
Next 20
That's
years.
what they say.
To your knowledge, has the Minister for Conservation come down to King Island to have a look at the threats for the top 3 of the top 4 most likely birds to go extinct in Australia?
No.
Your Honour, I rest my case. Your Honour. Okay. I just thought, Kate, that might make a really nice little clip for Instagram and TikTok and whatnot. So that's what I'm going to use that for, just so you know. So, because I think we've got to stop being nice. I mean, actually, think of it like this: if the platypus, the kangaroo, and the koala were the 3 most likely animals in Australia to go extinct in the next 20 years, do you think the minister wouldn't have been photographed next to a bloody kangaroo, koala, or watching the platypus at Hillsville Sanctuary? I mean, the idea is just absurd. So we need to keep at them. All right.
I'll tell you. Okay. All right. Off you go.
No. Tell me. No, tell me.
I was just going to tell you a little story.
All right. Is this
right
fit for
back
public
in
consumption?
1988? I went to an Australian Conservation Foundation
Actually, Kate,
conference.
hold it. I'm going to get you in full screen. There we are. Just start again.
Okay,
Start with. I'm going to tell you a little story. Say I'm going to tell you a little story and go on. Yeah.
So in 1988, I went to an Australian Conservation Foundation conference in Sydney, and there were lots of workshops and things, and I chose to go to the one on water because I wanted to learn about what was happening to water, given we had these environmental issues. Now, there was another workshop on warm furry animals, and what was happening to the animals. Now, the animal workshop was absolutely full. Shockers. in the water workshop, we had two people and the two scientists who were going to be talking to us. So what was the issue that back in 1988? No one understood what really was happening to the environment. So no one went to the basic everyday water stuff because they could see the warm furry animal. It was there, they could see it, they could touch it, and they didn't want it to go away. And that's exactly what, Susan Ley or whoever the environment ministers are do the same thing. It's all to do with show. Instead of actually looking at what the really fundamental issues are here, they just go up for the show. But you're talking about birds. Why isn't she down here with birds? Because people take birds for granted. Or they might be too hard to see. The species we have here, which are threatened, critically endangered, are two little brown birds. They're not big. The orange-bellied parrot's much nicer to look at. He's got some, action. But these two little brown birds both have the most gorgeous little personalities, particularly the scrub tit. He's just such a cutie. You just want to hug him, really. And the currawong is hilarious. They have the black currawong. They are just such jovial, happy birds. They just make you laugh. But they don't have the same charisma as something small and furry. But they are much better indicators.
I think, Kate, I need to do a dedicated episode on why subspecies are important, and that you can't just say, oh well, if you lose them on King Island, there's brown thornbills everywhere. Well, no. Hang on. Genetic diversity has its own value, and we don't know what we don't know.
Absolutely. And there is a good possibility that the King Island brown thornbill, he looks so different from the ordinary brown thornbill that there's a high possibility he may in fact be a separate species altogether. But we won't go into it. But because the whole issue of species is so complex. But generally, scientifically, subspecies are regarded as important as a full species. So there's really no difference. Just the name.
So we need to really bang on about that and get that more widely understood. And as more funding comes in, he says, hopefully the genetic work can be done on these isolated populations, not only on King Island, but on all of the significant island populations in Australia, in New Zealand, in the Pacific, and we can really understand what we have before they are gone, and that work never gets done, so we can mitigate, or I don't know. People are still talking about the Jurassic Park option, aren't they? So, Kate, what are we to do? All right, let's do something fun.
Right.
Let's do the bird emergency questions round.
Oh, sounds tricky.
Before we jump into that, Kate, are you getting, when you're looking at me and you, are you getting the lag issues, or is it just me?
No, I'm getting some lag issues from you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Not seeing them in myself, but I'm seeing them in you. Not as bad as they were. Much better than they were.
I've turned off everything I can turn off. It's just Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks, Mr. Turnbull, for the wonderful internet that you've given us here in Australia. Thank you so much. I mean, I'm 20 kilometres from the centre of our second city in this country. It's a joke. Anyway.
Yes.
And hello, Kevin, if you're out there, if you're watching. Right. Kate, the bird emergency question. No,
right.
Good. Well, it seems to be as soon as I want to switch the views to make it more interesting that it does go. Oh, I can turn off the bird. I can turn off the Birds of King Island ticker now. Kate Ravich, doyen of the Birds in Backyard program and champion of the endangered birds of King Island. What's
Gosh,
your
it sounds
favourite bird,
scary.
Kate?
Ooh. Oh, it's really hard because I have so many. Um, but I think it's actually the dusky robin. The dusky robin is a robin from Tasmanian robin, and we have a subspecies on King Island. But they're just gorgeous. They're brown robins. They're not red robins. They're just little brown birds, but they are such fun, and they're just full of character. Just love them. I have quite a few here on King Island and where I live, and so I see them around quite a lot, and they just have these gorgeous little calls and quite a plaintive little call. And I have several, but yeah, I'll put them first.
I'm going to put in an extra question, Kate, because of your childhood. What
Okay.
is your favourite New Zealand bird?
Oh, um, I'll say the bellbird. I can't think of its Maori name. We used to call it a mocky, but that's not its Maori name. Um, it just has a beautiful call, and it's very active. It's similar to an Australian honeyeater, and yeah, it's a call of my childhood, which I guess I loved. And the other one, which would be pretty high up there too, is the little wren. Um, what's he called? Oh golly, there's a few actually, but no, I'll stick with my bellbird.
New Zealand have got some amazing birds that some of them are very closely allied to Australian species, and some of them seem to bear no resemblance at all. Like the wren almost looks like a true wren, the New Zealand wren, but I don't think it is a true wren, but it almost looks like a true wren.
It's actually there's two there's a rock wren and this other little one which I'm having a mental block on at the moment. Um, and they are I think I'm right in saying this, they are the oldest known passerines which still exist. So
Mm.
they trace their heritage back to Gondwana. Um, and so they are completely unique and completely different. There's a number of birds on New Zealand which aren't related to anything else, and that's would seem to be because New Zealand originally broke away from Gondwana well before Australia did. I
Mm.
think it was about 90 million years ago.
Mm.
Um, and then it's sunk and risen and carried on, lost its mammals and lost its snakes, but the birds have managed to hang in there and then just evolved completely differently. There's some fantastic um, and extraordinary birds in New Zealand, but most of the really extraordinary ones now are really only surviving on the islands, small islands, conservation islands.
Yeah, yeah, and
Um,
and of course, I
so a
have
lot
to
of them
plug I have to plug a previous episode. If you are interested in the kakapo, of course, go back and check out the fantastic chat I had with Andrew Digby talking about the kakapo recovery projects. Marvelous stuff.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
Kate. Um, when you're out birding, when you're out in the
Mm.
field, what is your either favourite piece of equipment or your Um, most used piece of kit?
Oh, my binoculars. I mean, where would I be without my other eyes? Definitely my binoculars.
Well,
Um,
that
they're,
one was an easy
they're
one for you.
extensions of me. Sorry?
That was an easy one for you.
Yeah,
Um,
easy one for
uh,
me. Yeah, absolutely.
uh, um,
That and now my phone too, because I of course upload all my data through Bird Data, and I do that on the phone. So yeah, but binoculars first, definitely.
and what's your field guide of choice?
Pizzies. Piscian night.
Piscian night.
Piscian
What?
night.
Why?
I think it gives me some good information. I like its or I like the night's illustrations. I think they are very close to what is real. And I like the amount of information I get from it. It's a bit heavy to carry, but it's not as heavy as some of the other newer editions. And some of the other smaller ones I also don't think provides me with as much info as I want. So I've actually got several different field guides, but when I take a field guide with me, I'll take Piscian Night, and I have Piscian Night on my phone.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Are you moving to the apps on the phone?
Yes,
instead of the hardcover when you're in the field.
Yeah, in the field it's much easier, providing you've got internet cover, of course. Depends where you are.
Thanks.
It's good to have both.
Thanks, Malcolm. What's your bucket list bird, Kate?
Probably some of the parrots. I'm not a twitcher. I'm a bird observer. So I don't specifically go out to find a bird. I get very excited when I see a bird I've never seen before, but I'm not. I don't really go out and search for bird I've particularly just to see it. I'm much more about observing what's under my nose, really, I guess. But having said that, there are some birds which I would love to see up in the Northern Territories, particularly. But I'll get excited if I haven't seen a bird for a long time. I'll get really excited about seeing it again, and I'll get as excited about that as I might have if I'd never seen it before. So, and that I'm probably a wee bit different from many, but there's quite a few people like me too.
So
I don't really have a bucket list.
But if I twist your arm and say you cannot leave this room unless you give me one.
Okay, I've got to give you one. What do I really, really, really love to see? Well, I'd love to see a palm cockatoo. There's quite a few parrots that I've never seen, which I'd love to see. And I can't think of a single one at the moment, but there are a number which I've thought, I'd love to see those. So I think Northern Territories is where I need to go next. When we all open up and get some chance.
That's right.
Or
the Pilbara, and then
I've been to the Pilbara. The Pilbara is
New
wonderful.
Guinea.
It's fabulous. Had a great time at the Pilbara.
And New Guinea, and then the
I was just going to say
Indonesian.
New Guinea. I'd love to see Paradise. I mean, I've seen the Australian ones, but I haven't seen. I'd love to go up there and see those. Look, I have some very dear friends who are they're international birders. They do other things too, and they travel quite a lot for their jobs. But they always, wherever they always go birding as well. And they've got this big photography. They take photographs, and they have this huge website about all their photographs. Fabulous people. And some of their bird photography, and I look at these amazing little animals, and I just think, it'd be so good to see them. I'd love to go to the Amazon. Can you imagine going to the Amazon and going up? It'd be just such fun. It would be fascinating. I'd be blowing my mind all the time.
You know what I've determined from that answer, Kate?
What?
It's going to need to be a very big bucket for your bucket list.
Well, maybe that's why I can't pick one out. Is because I have a huge bucket.
Oh no, I'm assigning the palm cockatoo to you, so that's
okay.
You've
got
that one. You've got that one.
Okay.
Well, while we're on bucket lists, what's your bucket list location? Now you've given me a handful in that last answer, but if I could give you one airfare right now, what? And it's the only airfare you can get in the next 20 years, but I have it here. It's the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory golden airfare ticket. What destination do you want me to write on it?
Kapiti Island in New Zealand.
Okay. We have to say why. We have to say why.
Well, there's a lot of birds there, which only New Zealand birds there, which only are available on the on islands, which I haven't seen in the wild,
And where
or in many cases seen at all.
where
Sorry,
is it located? In
Kapiti
the
Island. It's off the west coast of the North Island.
okay.
It's quite a big island. You
Is
can only
it in the
go.
Gulf?
No, it's in the Tasman Sea.
Okay.
It'll be in the
Yeah.
Tasman because
Yep.
it's north. It's sort of northwest of Wellington,
Okay, so it's
and
further out than what I was thinking.
yeah, so it's a reserve. The whole island is a reserve, and they've got kiwi and lots of things there. And I'd love to go there. And I almost got there
Oh,
once. Very nearly. We were going the next morning in this big storm, and you only go by boat, and they cancelled the boat.
well,
And I was coming
well
back to Australia.
let me test your Kiwi knowledge retention.
Oh, God. Yes.
Is it only one species of the 5 Kiwis on the island, or do they have a couple?
Not sure. Can't tell you
Okay.
that. Sorry. Try again.
Sorry to spring that one on you, Kate. I'll have to edit that bit out. So,
Yeah, no, I don't know.
I was chasing down. I'm trying to get an expert on each one of the 5 Kiwi species because I'm going to do
Right.
a Kiwi arc.
Kiwi.
So I only know that there are 5 because I was having a yak to Andrew Digby about it. So, but there we go. All right, Kate. The next question. The next question, and I think you've partially answered this, but it's really important that you give it some thought. Are you maintaining a life list?
No.
Okay,
Sorry.
so that's fine because as regular listeners to the podcast, and if you're new to the video, you will discover over time that bird nerds occur can be placed on a spectrum. And Kate, you and I are down one end of that spectrum where we are not maintaining a life list and we are not dashing out at the report of some bird in the 300 kilometers from our home. We're not slamming down our dinner plate and jumping in the vehicle and heading off to see something to add to our life list. So that's the other extreme end
No,
of the
that's
spectrum.
not me. I'm thrilled to hear that they're there, but I'm not going to be rushing off to see it just for the sake of seeing it. I'd rather
That's
know
right.
it was safe.
Wouldn't it be fantastic if all of those birds that you hear about in the rare birds alert were actually becoming less rare year by year, and that the number of rare bird alerts would be decreasing rather than increasing?
Oh,
That's the
absolutely.
world I want to
That's
live in.
yeah, me too. Me too. Absolutely. That's the aim. It's the aim of conservation is to get birds off the list, not on the list.
Absolutely,
But
it'd be
anyway,
great. It would be great if we never heard about them again for reasons other than
if they
they
were
have
safe.
disappeared. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, Kate,
Yes.
I think we've covered off everything we can about King Island for now. We'll be keeping in touch with you as the surveys draw closer, and if there's anything you want to let us know, please do that, and I'll do my best to communicate it. and I'll be starting a little King Island section on the birdemergency.com so that
Lovely.
you can
Thank you.
go there, and that will of course link to the marvelous birdsofkingisland.com. Kate
Thank you. That's
Ravich,
great.
um,
Right. Thank you
fearless
very much.
fearless protector of King Island birds, and the originator of the marvelous Birds in Backyards program at BirdLife Australia. Thanks so much for talking to me, Kate. I wish you well in the surveys, and I hope I can be dropping into King Island sometime and seeing it for myself. Thanks, Kate.
Well, I hope you do come, and thanks very much. Okay. Take care,
And
Grant.
remember, if you haven't subscribed to the Bird Emergency podcast, you can do that. It's quite easy. The easiest way is to go to lovethepodcast.com/the Bird Emergency, apart from all the links I've got on the Bird Emergency website. But no matter what platform, lovethepodcast.com/the Bird Emergency will help you find the best platform for your device.